Welcome to Lighten Up, the Art of Living Clutter-Free, a podcast for people who are ready to clear the physical, the mental, and the emotional clutter that's been weighing them down. I'm Melanie Cohen, your host, coach, and guide. Each week, we talk about the clutter you can see and the clutter you can't. The stuff in your home, the noise in your head, the expectations, habits, and unmade decisions that quietly drain your energy. This isn't about perfection or minimalism. It's about creating space for what actually matters in this season of your life. Let's lighten up together, starting now. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Lighten Up, the Art of Living Clutter-Free, where we talk about all things clutter. I have a guest with me today. Let me give a little introduction. Coach Lee Hopkins is a social connections coach and the CEO of Patterns of Possibility, LLC. After years of masking and struggling with loneliness, Coach Lee now helps late identified autistic adults and professionals create authentic relationships without exhaustion. Through coaching, workshops, and the Social Connections Summit, he shares actionable skills to help adults build confidence, set boundaries, and connect with clarity. Coach Lee's work supports smart, high-performing individuals who find socializing harder than it looks, offering practical tools for both personal and professional growth. He also hosts the Patterns of Possibility podcast, where he shares insights on authenticity, boundaries, and the challenges of building real relationships. Lee, thank you for being here today.
Lee, I'm very, very excited. Thank you for having me.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. And I know I mentioned it to you in pre-interview, but you're only the second man that I've ever had on the show.
I'm a pioneer.
Well, my husband would probably call himself a pioneer or forced into, arms behind his back. So there were just so many things about you that I thought were so valuable, not on sex or gender lines, but just in general. And so I felt that having you here was going to be a benefit to everybody who listens, which is probably 95% female. That other 5% might be my husband and my dad, but I digress. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your path to where you are right now?
Yeah, so as far as, being a coach and helping people with the social connections, it's basically because I struggled with it for my entire life. I didn't know why people said what they said, and it sounds so generic, but I always got myself in trouble for wanting to say the truth about my experiences, or I want to point out something that was obvious, but it didn't seem appreciated when I pointed out, like I was being a smart person, like I was being rude or something. And I struggled with these kind of connections for many, many years. And I grew up at a time where we just didn't know what it was. It was just a little awkward, it was just a little off, and you just kind of have to try and fit in. And so I'd done that for some time to try to fit in. If I don't know why things are funny, just force a laugh. It's hilarious to fit in. And I think people do it. People have done it from time to time. So I didn't think it was a big deal. Like when you're your teens, you try and you fit in. You just get in where you fit in. But it persisted, like not being able to find the right group of people, the right friendships. They just kept falling apart for years upon years into my 20s, into my 30s. So I went to therapy. I had a partner actually said, it's your problem. You're the trouble. You need to go to therapy. And Melanie, I had no sense of self. I was so doubtful of who I was and what was real. So I was like, well, I guess I should go to therapy. And they were right, though. My partner was right. So guys out there, if your partner is telling you to go, just go. Just go. Just go to therapy. Get some of that clutter out of your heads.
But can we also say, ladies, if your partner, be it male or female or non-binary, if someone recommends going to therapy, just go. Just go.
Yeah, you could say that. So, I mean, I can thank my partner for that so much, a former partner, because we ended up breaking up because I went and I got the skills in my sense of self and I learned not to put up with some stuff. And so anyway, you'll find out something great about yourself. That's what I discovered in therapy. But to bring it back to how I became a coach was that I went through this whole process of years in discovering this and realizing that, okay, now I have this emotional intelligence. I'm going to use it to connect with people. And I still couldn't do it. There was something that I didn't know about connecting with people that was awkward. The social aspect of it, what to say, when to say it, how to say it. I didn't understand that piece. And it turned out that I wasn't the only one. And so this is a couple of years ago. So this is 2026, but in 2024, at the end of 2024, I started to look around at TikToks and then we was looking at Reddit and I was listening to people describe their experience with social issues, connections with others. I was like, wow, this so much matches my experience, but they identified as autistic and I did not. And then I started reading more and more and more about this. And I'm like, oh, I must also be autistic because the way they described their experiences were exactly what I had lived. And so I assumed that identity. And now I help those who are struggling with creating those connections, setting boundaries, because I lived that experience and I know that there's a different way to connect when you're a logical thinker or when you want to say obvious things or when you want to talk about things very deeply that many other people just don't understand, there is a way to go about doing it that maybe neurotypical people or people who don't think that way won't appreciate. So
Mhm.
that's why I do what I do, and that's how I got there.
I love it. I have so many questions. You ready?
I'm ready. I'm sitting up getting ready.
I want to start with one basic one. Where you started was in order to fit in, I started laughing even if I didn't really understand the joke. And it's not you didn't understand the joke. You didn't even understand why it was a joke, right?
Right.
And
Yes.
so those of us who try to be funny all the time, I recognize that a lot of my humor is sarcastic. And I would imagine for someone neurodivergent, that sarcasm is a really hard one. Am I right?
Yeah, it is kind of a hard one, but someone explained this to me, a fellow neurodivergent, Dr. Becca Block. She explained this to me about how
She's going to be on my podcast too.
she's going to be on our podcast too. That's awesome.
Yeah.
She explained that it's just the telling the truth, but taking the opposite of the truth. And
Okay.
that's what sarcasm is and saying it in like a funny way, but it's the opposite of the truth. And I'm like, I only got this knowledge a couple of weeks ago, but that really rings true to me.
My father told me a long, long time ago that sarcasm has its roots in anger, which made me
Mm.
angry because I was like, sarcasm is this, like sardonic, like black comedy. Sarcasm to me is like some of the best. But when you sit back and really reflect on it, some of that is true. I don't believe that it's black and white. It's, always anger or not anger. But I always
Right.
love to say that we raised our kids to be bilingual, and what I mean is English and sarcasm.
Innocent sarcasm. Yeah.
What can I say? So, okay, that was a little piece of what I was listening to. I think the other is that whole concept of wanting to feel like a part of the group. And
Yeah.
even for those of
Yeah.
us who are incredibly extroverted, there is still a need to be seen and heard and understood. And sometimes understood is not something to ask for because someone may not or may never understand what you're going through, but be sympathetic. Not that there's no empathy, but rather, how can there be empathy if you don't understand what the other person is experiencing?
Right. Exactly. I've always wanted for people to understand me. I didn't know that I wanted to be understood, though. I think when I was younger, I didn't know that I wanted to be understood. I didn't know what that was. It's like people would just describe it as love or we're just having fun together. But if I don't understand what you're saying or why it's funny or that it is even a joke, then I am so far removed from you. I'm so disconnected from you and I've just found myself being that way. And as I learned more about myself and I have really focused on this understanding piece and I know that in my relationships I want understanding and I think people who are just curious about things they also want to understand but they also want to be understood. So I think that's what really makes the connection so specifically because it helps for me to break it down like what is it that you want to understand about others, their values. People say generically, your values. I want to understand your values. I want to understand what you think and what's fun to you. Great, great, great. I do want to understand those. But if we're going to be friends, also, I'd like to share some of those with you. I'd like to be able to share what those values are with you. So your values will show up in what you do and what you say and the kind of humor that you like. I'm personally a deadpan kind of humor. I can definitely get that. It's hilarious storytelling humor. It's funny to me. The values of what you do and who you are show up. And in order to make friends, in order to connect with others, you also have to have your values show up in you so other people can see you too. So you can both essentially understand each other.
For sure, for sure. So tell me about growing up. Was your feeling different something that led to being bullied in any way?
That was different. Man, yeah, definitely. So a couple of things about me, and I believe in authenticity. For, as I say, for understanding, you've got to be able to put yourself out there, especially if you're a business owner. But if you want to connect with people, you have to be authentic. And what does that really mean? It's just talking about the truth of your experiences. And so for me, when I was growing up, right now I'm transgendered. I'm female to male. So I transitioned about 10 years ago. And growing up, I was a tomboy. So that's what they say when you're a girl who likes to jump and climb trees and explore places that are dirty and you don't like to play with dolls and you like to run with boys and do all kinds of quote boy stuff. That's 40 years ago. That's what people said. So don't come for me today. That's just another person today. So I grew up as a tomboy and it was hard to connect with people. I was a smart kid. I paid attention in school, was a people pleaser, and I grew up just kind of if that was something to be made fun of, that was one of those things. Being smart was as a black kid, that was something to be made fun of too. I was just so confused. Like, what won't get me made fun of? Well, what will get me to be a part of a group? It turns out there wasn't much. Never figured out what it was. And today I think that what will guarantee me participation in any group is if I complain about stuff. We can all complain together.
In this world, absolutely.
Yeah, we just find something to complain about.
So you make me think of so many things. First of all, I was a tomboy who liked playing with dolls, for the record.
Wow.
Like, I feel like I get both sides. I loved my Barbies so much, but I also loved climbing the jungle gym, climbing trees, climbing the
Mm,
big rocks in the playground, and I participated in all the sports. So I appreciate that from both sides. And I will say, we used to call my daughter, my younger daughter, a tomboy all the time, and I wish I didn't. She's gay. She loves women, but that's not what made her a tomboy.
yeah,
She played softball, lacrosse, and soccer, and most of her friends are girls. But
yeah,
calling her a tomboy wasn't fair. And I said something to her about it recently, and she was like, whatever, mom. But if I could go back in time, I wouldn't have used that language.
yeah. We only know what we know, right? That's why this podcast exists to help other people understand what we've learned. We're just trying to pass it on because it's so helpful to reflect and see how things have been. And I would say you would take responsibility for that kind of thing is a lot different than some other parents out there who won't.
Okay, in all fairness, I screwed up in a lot of other ways that I haven't necessarily addressed yet, but they'll come. I'm sure they'll come. My kids are 29 and 27. I both have a lot of time to screw them up, more time to screw them up, and a lot of time to fix things. So, I say this is, the art of living clutter free, my podcast all about clutter. And if
Yeah.
someone's a first time listener, they may be thinking what that means is that I'm talking about physical clutter, but I'm talking about digital clutter. I'm talking about 24-hour news cycle clutter, which is crazy.
Mm.
Social media clutter, people clutter, emotional clutter, mental clutter, and emotional and mental clutter being two different things. But the mental clutter are like all of the voices in our head. They're the things that are playing on loop over and over again, which is often not what we put in there, but the things we heard other people say often enough that we then owned that language. And that's why we hear it over and over again. And then the emotional clutter is all the feelings associated with those things. And one of the things that we talked about was you had so many opportunities for mental clutter. You had so many opportunities given what you have experienced in your life that would constitute in anybody else like a head exploding because there's so much going on in there. And when we first sat down, you were like, mental clutter? Wait, what? In retrospect, What does that make you think?
There's definitely a lot of things in there, and I think that there's some kind of magic that the brain does that helps us compartmentalize that and put it away forever as much as we possibly can. But it's not really gone; it's really manifesting in some other way. But some of the things that I've experienced, growing up in a single parent household with a parent who actually worked really hard to make sure that family had the things that they needed, that we needed, and some things that they probably had stuffed in their mental clutter that they didn't talk about or I would never ever get to know. So I didn't know how to deal with any of the mental clutter that I've had. That just kind of stayed in there and it did the things that it did. So there's the stress of, a parent who is stressed out and they don't know how they're showing up and impacting me. There's being made fun of at school. There's this feeling of being isolated and not never going to fit in. And then there's like, okay, well, maybe I'm the wrong. So before I transitioned from female to male, I was dating women and I grew up in a small town, but it was pretty Christian. Everybody was religious in some way. And I went against that. It was like, "Oh, man, I'm just making these spaces I'm running into these spaces where I'm supposed to fit, and I think I'm supposed to fit, or society tells me I'm supposed to fit, but it's just not working for me. Like, I don't like this, I don't like that, these people don't like me, I don't know what I'm doing here." And so all that mental clutter is like essentially you're wrong, you're bad from trying different spaces and being in different spaces. You're wrong, you're bad. And I went to college and I still had the same problem because I heard that what you do when you're trying to make friends and connect with people is that you go find your tribe. So I moved from my small town to a college town. Go find your tribe. You messed it up again, Lee. You're wrong. You're bad because you went somewhere and you're supposed to do the thing that it was so simple to do. You messed it up. More mental clutter. It's just continued to compound for years upon years. Then I transitioned. Oh, you're wrong. You're bad. Society hates you because you're this kind of person. Like, I just can't. I don't know what I'm doing here on this planet. For a moment in time, I felt that way. And then I just realized that, okay, well, there are people. I looked around and started to like kind of sit and contemplate and think there are people out there who have exactly what I want. They have the relationships. There's no reason why I can't. So, whatever clutter is going on up in here, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. Nobody likes me. You're in the wrong place. I had to get rid of that. I had to really systematically get rid of that. That's where my autism helps me really figure out some of these pieces because it felt like a systematic process to remove these pieces. And I like patterns, I like processes, I like to stick with those kinds of things. So if it's kind of root around in there, figuring out what the garbage is, and then analyzing the garbage, it's what I do with my clients. Look at this. Is this a belief that really serves me or not? If it is, then I can hang on to it and look at it, make sure that it really does serve me. If it's not, we can just work on throwing that out and continuously go through the process and be kind and gentle to myself as I go through the process because I don't want to create more clutter with shame, right? So,
Because there are other people out there who are perfectly happy to do the shaming for you. You said a lot of things that I think are really valuable, and one of them is we're so deep in our own heads, assuming that this is what people think or assuming this is what people see because we're looking through our own lens and we forget sometimes. We said it before that like the voices in our head weren't necessarily our voices to begin with, but the
mhm.
things that we heard from our parents, from teachers, from coaches, from mentors, from our friends, and finding your own truth can be really difficult when you're hearing everybody else's truth. So I was diagnosed with ADHD at 30. So this is 26 years ago. And at 30, I was like, oh my God, now I understand. Like it
Mm,
just made so much of my life make sense. But the reality was in the 70s and 80s, they weren't talking much about ADHD. And if they were, it was boys. Like girls didn't have this thing. because we were so well behaved and we sat still,
Right.
and I couldn't do any of that. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't stop talking. This is what my father should be so proud of me. I have a podcast because I get to talk,
You're gonna get it out.
I get to talk. But I was that kid where I think in many cases I got tuned out by my parents because I was talking so much. But I was talking so much because there was so much in my head that had to come out. How was it going to get out? And my inability to focus in school. One of the I think I've shared the story before, but I'm going to go ahead and share it for context. I was a competitive gymnast growing up. I left school early in the day. I trained 4 or 5 hours in the afternoon and evening. I found much more value in gymnastics than I did in school. So I didn't try as hard as I could have. But I also struggled with just paying attention. So I had a math teacher who sat me down and said, "So how long is a floor routine?" "A minute and a half." "How long is a beam routine?" "A minute and a half." He asked how long a bar routine was, and I actually had to do it in my head to give him 22 seconds. And he said, "That's your problem." I said, "What's my problem?" And he said, "The thing that you love doing most doesn't necessitate long-term concentration. It's very concentrated for a very short period of time. But most math problems take more than a minute and a half." Smart, it sounded like it could be right. And that's what I thought in my head for so many years. And then at 30, when I was diagnosed, I didn't necessarily have a fix for it, but just understanding why I was the way I was gave me so much clarity, and it gave me calm too, because
Absolutely.
I wasn't broken, or maybe I was, there was something biochemically that, wasn't firing on all cylinders or on the right cylinders, but just knowing that I wasn't at fault was
Yeah.
huge for me.
Absolutely. That's what it feels like. Thanks for sharing that story. It really does help me understand a little bit more about you. I love to do that to have some
Mm,
understanding, right? But yeah, the more you know about yourself, the easier it is for you to share with other people. And you can feel more confident and find that truth that we were talking about if you know more about yourself. And I love to be able to have other people tell me more about who I am. And I think that if you want people to tell you about who you are, you have to be a person who can receive it, consider, reflect upon it. Because some people are going to tell you some things you're not going to like, and it might fit you, but it's in your best interest to look at those things. Like, you're not a kind person, or you're mean in these instances. Otherwise, you're great, but don't just hear you're great. You have to listen to the other pieces too to find the real truth and who you are.
right. And I think it also helps in how it's delivered, I think there are times where you want to tell someone that they're hurting you, and they may not see it as something that should hurt you, but it does.
But it
So
does.
I don't. It would benefit us if we would just sit and listen to what the person had to say, and then recognize that it's not that that you're at fault, but rather not understanding how something makes someone feel means you're going to keep doing it until the person says, "When you say that, I feel badly." Well, you shouldn't feel badly, but I do.
I just had to jump in here because I feel so passionately about this. If your friend says, "Hey, you hurt me," the first thing, if you have feelings about them not having those feelings, and hold on, they're trying to give you information on how not to do it again. If you're friends and you hurt them, they're going to tell you, this is how you don't do it again. And for me, I want to cherish that information. You're going to give me good information about how I can treat you well because that's my desire. That's my goal as a friend. Give me that. I'm all ears. I'm listening. Move that ego out of the way. I'm hearing what you've got to say. And it's going to be something reasonable. It's not going to be something irrational, like you need to give me $1 million or you need to mow my lawn every Saturday in the summer or something like that. It's not going to be something that's irrational. It's really going to be something that prevents you from doing harm to your friend again. Get that
Right.
information.
I mean, I think it hurts to know that you hurt somebody. If anybody listening is like me, I can still remember things I said and did 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. They play on loop. there's mental clutter. And because how
Mhm.
many times that we're playing that on loop, and if we saw the person say, you know what, I felt so bad that day on the schoolyard, they'd be like, what day on the schoolyard?
And it comes out, and for not for no reason, it just comes out. It's like it's worth cleaning that up so it doesn't just kind of splurt out everywhere when you are in the middle of a conversation with someone and suddenly you're triggered to go back to when you were 6 years old and you took somebody's cookies from them at lunch. I don't know. And we're really upset. What happens with me is that you go back to an instance where you have felt a similar feeling and you replay that experience in your head, but you are years away from that experience. You've just brought yourself back there, but now you're reliving that experience. Is worth it to clean that up so it doesn't prevent you from making new relationships or making new connections. You get rid of that mental clutter so that you can create memories and more space for new people and new things in your life.
Sure, sure. So, if you're willing, I'd like to ask questions about the mental clutter associated with discovering that you were in the wrong body, that you
Sure.
identified as male, because unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there who don't believe that's a thing and like to fight it as opposed to learning to understand it. So, can you tell me a little bit of what about what that looked like for you or how it felt?
So the mental clutter that comes with is it's like, well, let's say talk about the reason why I transitioned in the first place. I definitely thought I was in the wrong body. I felt like the reason why is because again, I needed to go find my tribe and I was thought, oh, okay, I didn't find my tribe. I gotta become the person that I'm gonna be. So I gotta go make this physical transition to become the person I'm gonna be. And that didn't create the relationships that I thought was going to create for me. I thought that I was just in the wrong body, and as soon as I like my face, as soon as I start looking at it, then I would have the relationships I want because then I'd be more confident. But that wasn't true. That never happened. What happened was that I still created the same kind of relationships I did because it was my change needed to be internal. My confidence needed to really come from who I am and my likeness for the person I am. Like the how I feel about my experiences and being able to speak about them in a way that feels good to me without worrying about how other people are going to respond. The key is to not worry about how other people are going to respond. They are going to, you cannot control that. And if you shrink yourself and try and figure out how to get people to respond in the way you want them to, then you lose a sense of yourself. And it's just a bunch of clutter per se. Like they're going to say this about you, they're going to say that about you. Okay, okay, fine. But when I transitioned, it didn't create the results that I thought it was going to create. That doesn't mean that this was a mistake. I like my face. I like my body. I like how I feel. It just needed something else. I just needed something else to make this. It's like, going to the store to buy a new shirt. And this is this nice $2,000 shirt, which is really shiny and it looks great. You put it on and you think it's going to change your life. It's not. It's not. That's what I equate this
Mm.
change to as a taking it one level deeper as a spiritual being having a physical experience. That's what I relate it to. So there's more of my spirit, there's more of the mental, emotional that needs to be changed in order for me to attract the kind of people that I wanted to.
Mm.
The mental clutter that we discarded was worrying about how people are going to think and feel about me and what I do. I have done that for my entire life, and it only got me loneliness. I can point out to so many experiences that I've had through not believing in the Christian religion anymore, to dating women when I identified as a woman, to dating women when I identified as a trans man, to breathing air in the wrong spaces, to being smart when I should be dumb. Anything, anything. And that just clutters my brain up. So I shut the door to those kind of things. And what I do to prevent them from returning is just holding on to this belief that everyone feels the way they feel and it's valid. Like however they feel it's valid. It has nothing to do with me. I'm just a physical version of some kind of experience or visible experience that they want to have. Like if they want to have a bad day and they see me, then and they don't like trans people, then they're going to have a bad day. That's just what it is.
So how do you feel about that now,
How do I feel about what?
having made that decision?
The decision to let people have their feelings? It's been freeing. It's been a lot of fun. Not only do I let people have their feelings, but I get curious about why they have their feelings. I tend to go down sometimes removing myself from myself, like forgetting myself to think about, I wonder why that guy is so upset. What experiences in their life have they had? What happened today? Man, I'm not trying to take care of them. I'm not trying to cheer them up. I'm just curious. I'm watching from afar, like, huh, yeah, you stepped on my toe, or maybe you ran a red light or something. And I'm like, well, what happened with you today? I wonder. That's it. Um, I could say it would be different if somebody was in my face, but I've had somebody in my face yelling at me, and I disconnected from being concerned with them and being concerned with what they think about me rather. And I started to think, why are you so upset? What did I do? Oh, wow. And it's so much more freeing, like that energy of whatever's going on, the mental color. Oh no, they don't like me. Look, like they're really mad. Man, I disconnected. Maybe everybody won't respond that way. Maybe people will just leave or whatever. But I was like, wow, I'm interested in you.
I have to tell you though, as a lifelong people pleaser, that's hard to do. That, oh my God, I might have hurt someone's feelings. Or, oh my God, I should have been more present. I should have done the thing. I should have helped. It just ends up making you feel worse about yourself. And I think you also said something very valuable. When someone's being angry, we have no idea what happened to them before.
Yeah.
And so I would like to give people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're having a really crappy day, and that doesn't mean that they can take that crap out on somebody else. And that so we have to draw the line there, I think. But we don't know what we don't know.
Right. We don't know what we don't know. People have their own experience and they want what I firmly believe and walk around and I believe that people want others to understand them and how they specifically how they feel about their experiences. That's what they want. So the person who is yelling and screaming in my face or whatever, they're yelling like, oh, they want me to know that I'm mad about something. They want me to know it, but the method that they're using to get it across to me just kind of like will usually, if they were talking to anybody else, it will invoke the anger instead of explaining, instead of helping them understand why I'm mad. Now I'm mad too. Now you understand. Now, if you did receive that anger, now you would also be angry like them and they would see themselves as being understood. This is how I see it. And so we get to be mirrors to each other. But you don't have to reflect it back to them. You don't have to let that mental clutter in. Doesn't mean that they get to take it out on you. It is their responsibility to be able to say it clearly and kindly to you that I'm mad that you ran, that you yelled at me or whatever it is. I'm mad that you didn't show up when I need you to show up. I feel frustrated. I feel sad. And that's the way you really can connect with people. And you have to be able to make space for that kind of clarity in your language when you share this with other people. So it's a practice. It really is a practice to go through. That's what I teach. That's what I've been through because I would just be angry. I would just be angry at people and I wouldn't know why I was angry. I want people to know I'm angry, but I couldn't tell them why I was angry. I was angry because I can tell you right now, because I wasn't understood. I was always felt like I was doing the wrong thing. Now I can say it very clearly, and now I know that I'm not ever doing the wrong thing. I just don't vibe with everybody. It's pretty simple for me.
You mean not everybody can like you?
Not everybody can like me. You can try.
But I think that goes back to my people pleasing. Like, I just want everyone to like me, but I also want to be cool and different. But cool and different doesn't mean everybody's going to like you. I mean, like, I have played like this crazy record over and over again in my head. So I appreciate that we're talking about this. So I'm going to ask two questions. We may or may not leave this in the podcast because they were things that came to me and we didn't discuss them before. Are you willing to share where the name Lee came from? How you chose that?
Yeah, that was part of the name that I used to be called when I was younger. So I just kind of took it on. It felt right because it's gender neutral. Like, there's names out there like Alex that are gender neutral. There was another one that I was looking at, but I forget what it was. But that's it. It's just pretty simple. As long as it's gender neutral, I thought it's great.
That's amazing. I only know one other person whose name emulates, I guess, what their name had been. Or actually, it wasn't that it was the same, it's that she chose to pick a name that was similar to the name of the person who she was named for. So it wasn't necessarily the feminine version or a gender neutral version, but rather still honoring the person that they had been named for in some way. I find it fascinating because on the only time that I've ever had to navigate changing my name was choosing to take my husband's name and letting my maiden name go, only to come back when I went on Facebook. How's someone gonna find me from my married name if the last time we saw each other we were 12? And I have to
Mhm.
put my maiden name in there. And I very actively chose to let my maiden name go because I was having a lot of struggles with my parents at the time, and I kind of wanted to disassociate myself from that. I feel differently about that now, but it was very important for me to take on this new name and this new life that I was going to be living. And again, I don't want to be flippant about it, but I still, there are a lot of women out there who are making the decision whether or not to hyphenate or to take the name or keep their own name. And there's a lot of things to consider
Yeah,
in something that sounds as simple as a name,
sounds simple.
but it's not that simple.
It's
It's
an
not.
identity. It's like, well, it's one of the quickest ways people identify you is by your name. So it says a lot about you and it carries this history with it. And then all these connotations, as you're saying, like, oh, this, it means family and what it means for you and like, the emotional piece that you might have had with your family. But it also means the connection with the people who were 12 years old when you last saw them. It's everything feels like there's something attached to it. There's clutter
Mm.
everywhere if you're not careful with it.
I suppose we can say that my kids have clutter of names because they have first names and middle names. And then my husband grew up in Hawaii, and everybody with a connection to Hawaii also has a Hawaiian name, but we're Jewish. And so the kids were given Jewish names.
What?
So I suppose there's a yeah, so I love to do this. So my older daughter is Jolie Pauline Leneka Cohen. And then her Hebrew name is Esther Pesha. And my younger daughter is Shayna Alexis Keiki Kalani Cohen, also known as Sarah Leah, her Hebrew name. And so my younger daughter's name doesn't fit on everything because the Hawaiian
Wow.
name is Keiki Kalani, which is not a short name. But every one of those names has deep meaning behind them, why they were chosen, both in terms of, honoring where my husband grew up, honoring our religion, honoring the people. Every single one of their names is from a different deceased relative. And you're right. So Dale Carnegie, I'm going to mess the quote up, but one of Dale Carnegie's quotes is the sweetest sound to a person is the sound of their own name. And so people using your name instead of ma'am, miss, sir, Mr., hey, you, like using someone's name. If you remember it, and if you don't, like, don't hey you, say, I'm so sorry. I don't remember your name. Can you remind me what it is? Because we don't walk around with
Yeah,
name tags or our names on our
right.
heads, or sometimes we
I
wear
wish
nameplates or something like that.
I wish people did walk around with name tags. It would just be so much easier for me because I'd love to. I realize that I like when people address me by my names. I just forget if there's nothing that's super interesting and exciting about you to me, I'm likely gonna forget your name, or if I don't see you often, I'm gonna forget. I'm like,
Well, yeah. I was like, "Oh god, I hope Coach
say it
Lee would
first.
remember my name." I wanted to say one other funny thing about names. So, like, I had 9,000 nicknames growing up. My parents used to call me, this is gonna be surprise to no one, Mega Mouth, Mighty Mouth, Motor Mouth, like all the things. But someone on my gymnastics team when I was 12, everyone called me Mel. I mean, like, I've been Mel forever. But someone called me Melvin as a joke. And I have an Uncle Melvin. And then all of a sudden, everyone in the gym was calling me Melvin,
Wow.
except the poor lady who came to clean the gym, Pearl. I will never forget her. My parents told me the story later, I wasn't there, that she took my parents aside and asked why they would name such a beautiful young lady Melvin. My parents are like, "That's not her real name. Her real name is Melanie." Anyway, that was such it was such a sidetrack. So let's just shift gears while we have a little bit of time left. Tell me what it looks like working with you. Like, first of all, who is coming to you? I know we said briefly in the intro. Who's coming to you and what does working with you look like?
All right. Well, that's a great question. The people who come to me are really analytical minds who understand people logically, but they feel kind of drained or confused or unsure in real world conversation connection. Like they don't know why people say what they say. They may feel uncomfortable with more than two or three people in a group having conversations with them. So they also feel probably drained by asking for boundaries and asking for help. Like those are a couple of things that they can't do because they're afraid to be disliked. They are smart people. I work with smart people. They just are able to self-reflect. They've gone to therapy for some time and they've been just frustrated with the fact that they're tired of talking about how they feel in therapy. They're really ready for some kind of action. So when they come to me and they work with me, I will listen to them about their experiences and what they have tried before, and then we'll come up with an experiment. So let's get out of your head. Let's go check on these beliefs. If you are kind and supportive to people, if you give this guy to a ride to the airport at 4 o'clock in the morning when you know you have to be at work early in the morning, is that going to help your relationship? Let's talk about that and design an experiment around it. And the experiment would be
Mm,
like, okay, let's see if you can set a boundary. Say no and see what happens. How do you feel about that? What I'd ask them not to do is to be angry at someone else for a decision that they've made themselves.
mhm,
So they said, "Oh, it's for the sake of the relationship." Well, after you're done riding this person to the airport, your relationship should be better. That means you wouldn't be upset, right? You're not mad, not at them or not a decision that you made. So we work through those kind of things to give them more clarity about what they can say to actually set boundaries if they need to and how to start creating relationships that they want to. So if they're unsure about how to bring a topic up in conversation, we do that. We talk about that. I give them scripts. We practice it so you can really feel how it feels to say the thing. I'll never forget. I'll say this really quickly. I was in therapy myself. We did group therapy, and one of the things that we did was role play. And I was having trouble with my supervisor outside of this therapy session at work. I was having trouble with them, and I just didn't know what to say. I was always mad when they talked to me because of the way I was treated. I didn't know how to express that. And the therapist said, "Say these words. These are the exact words you need to say. Say I'm upset when such and such." And I was like, "Okay, now we're gonna role play it." She's like, "Yeah, we're gonna role play it." And as soon as we started, I forgot all the words. And it was very simple. Just say it very simply. Like, I'm mad at this. I forgot all the words. I was so clouded up in my emotions.
mm.
I was not even in the real experience. I was in a practice experience and I couldn't say the words. We did it twice and I got it the second time, but it was just that's one of the reasons why we do this role play. So if you have gone to therapy for years upon years and they say you need to set boundaries, you need to set boundaries, and you try and you say those boundaries in the practice session and then you go to real life, it's hard. It's hard to do. So we practice and practice, and that's really what makes the change is to practice saying your truth, speaking your truth. So you speak your truth and then you set those boundaries and you feel more connected with other people. That's how it works. So that's how we work together.
I think that's helpful to hear because I think a lot of people don't understand the difference between therapy and coaching, and there's value in both. I think there's value when both happen at the same time or
Yeah.
working with a therapist who has also been trained as a coach because therapy often we're talking about the past or,
Hmm.
and we're talking a lot about feelings, which we should, but there's not a lot about action moving forward.
Right.
And that's where coaches come into play. What's the goal? Where are you now? Where do you want to be? And what's the path to get there? As opposed to, woe is me, I'm this way because my mom, my dad, my brother, my boss, my teacher, my coach, whatever, whoever, it was that hurt us. It's no longer about them. That's hard to let go of, though. Sometimes it's so
Yes, we
easy
have
to
to
hang on
pause
to
right
that
there.
anger.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. So I think it's valuable for people to hear how coaching would look different, how you helping your clients looks different than a therapist helping their clients, not to invalidate either. I think that they're
Yeah.
best when they're married and someone is doing both for sure. I remember what I wanted to ask you about before, and I know
Yeah.
we're running super long. I want to be respectful of time, but I'm going to be disrespectful for a moment because I have a question I want to ask. And I think we may have talked about this before, and it is, in the Venn diagram, that intersection of those who live on the autism spectrum and those who identify as transgender. And there is a large group in that intersection. And in fact, I have a very close friend and she works with PFLAG and she runs the PFLAG meetings for parents whose kids are in that intersection, which I find fascinating. I also love that there is help that is so niched to people who are living in that world. Do you have anything to say about that? Any input?
I have found that neurodivergence and non-binary, there's a spiritual component to it too, I think, that I run into quite often. Like those people who are both neurodivergent or let's say autistic in particular, how they identify with the physical self is different than those who don't have those characteristics. Or I'm kind of struggling with exactly how to say this. And I don't want to say like autistic people are more spiritual. It's just been my experience and my own spirituality and looking at reality the way I do and the way I
Hmm.
describe it gives me a little more clarity because I'm going to say the thing directly. And the way my reality is shaped, I guess, is a little different than those who don't say it directly, as I'm struggling to say the thing that I need to say directly in this moment. But I found that there's overlap in their spirituality. There was actually a podcast that I listened to some time ago is called The Telepathy Tapes. And this was very popular in like 2024 about autism. But this is like many of the autists in this were high support needs. So they
Mm.
had measured some kind of spiritual connection with others. Like there was this whole process. Anyway, it's something that I have seen.
Love what you're saying because I think often spirituality is confused with religious, and that religious people can be very spiritual people, but just because you're spiritual doesn't mean you're religious. I think that's one. Two, I think in a lot of spirituality, it's a willingness to believe that there's something bigger than ourselves. And that's not necessarily God, I think it's
Right.
naive to assume that there aren't ghosts. 100% there are ghosts living in my home. Like, how if I can't
Are they
prove what
friendly?
happens, I
Okay.
hope so. We have a house across the street. We call it the haunted house. And I literally won't walk on that side of the street because there's no proof. But I think really what I mean is that there are spirits among us and that
Yeah.
my grandmothers are here, my grandfathers are here, for what it's worth. But I think it's naive to assume that we weren't here before in some other iteration, whether I was a tree or a dog. I hope I'm making sense, but
Yeah,
I
you
think
are
I
making
think it's
absolute
naive.
sense to me. I like all of the stuff that you're saying. It feels like I definitely feel like I'm a part of everything that's happening as like the energy flows and stuff I can't see, stuff I can't really explain myself, but it is there. And I like believing that that is true just for the sake of, being a part of something bigger than just me. Cause man, that would just feel super lonely.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, why would we think that there isn't extraterrestrial life. Like, how, for the people who think there isn't, how close-minded to like the vastness of our universe or just the
Hmm.
vastness of our galaxy. Like, are we really the only intelligent life? Because sometimes the life on this planet doesn't feel very intelligent. But at the end of the day, there are going to be listeners who are going to say, well, that was an interesting conversation they just had. And
Yeah.
if there are listeners who don't believe in a person's right to be who they are, to marry who they want, to love who they want, I'm going to say it right now, then maybe don't listen to my podcast. Like, I don't want to be rough around the edges, but if someone's going to log on or listen and hear Coach Lee Hopkins and his story,
You
then they're
have
not
to.
the right clients for me.
Yeah, I've found that too, and man, we could talk all day, but definitely
We sure
being
could.
authentic about it is going to attract the right clients. Like, I don't want to pander to you trying to be the person you want me to be. That's people pleasing. That doesn't serve me. And this is my business. I have to do it when I work for a company, but I work for me now, and you can go away. You can go away. I actually want to repel you and push you as far away as possible from me because I want to make space for the people who want to be close. That's
I love you saying that.
what you're saying. That's what I hear you saying. That's what I'm saying too.
Yeah.
It's like I want to
Yeah.
repel you and push you as far away from me so that other people who want to be in the space can see me and come closer. That's what I'm looking
Right.
for.
Right. I had a very interesting conversation with someone recently who the bottom of her website talks about all the things that she believes in. And it's all the things that I believe in, that love is love and that, people matter, that we live on ancestral land that didn't necessarily belong to us in the beginning. Like, she rattles off everything that I believe. And I've been contemplating putting similar on my website. Because shouldn't people know who they're going to be working with? Not that I'm going to be spewing my values and not that I'm going to be trying to convince people to think the way that I do, but no,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is the way that I feel and I operate. So I'm going to give two opportunities. One, for you to comment, and two, I want you to share whatever it is that you feel like we haven't shared yet today that is important for my listeners to hear.
Okay. So what were the two things again? I got this. I got the.
I'm sorry. It should be one at a time. I hear you. I want your thoughts and feelings on what I just said.
Oh, okay. Okay, my thoughts and feelings are like absolutely amazing. We in this day and age, people are looking at people they're working with and companies and they're wondering where their money is going. And they would intentionally like to invest in things that support the causes that they believe in. But if you don't know, then they can't invest. I recently went and looked for a black owned LGBT spot to go spend my money, and I found one. And I looked and I looked and looked so I could find that space because I want to invest in that. So if you're going to put that there, that's great. I'm thinking maybe I can do that too. I have an about page about me and I say I'm trans and all this stuff. I like the idea of having something that's just plain right there because I know that's important. It's a great idea.
These are the things that I value,
These are the
you
things that I
know.
value.
And I value people not being hurt. Okay. So, what do you want to make sure that something that we missed that you want to make sure that people hear?
I think that the best thing to do is to, of course, believe in yourself. And that's sounds so generic. And what I've done, because I need something physical to help me understand, like I just can't say believe in yourself when you believe in yourself. I like to look at the things that I have done well. And done well is kind of subjective, where I feel good about a thing that I feel good about. And for a long time, it was just me waking up. Like I feel good about waking up this morning because it was really hard to find something I was good at or could find joy in. But that could be it. Like, I get to try again. Here it is today. And so, what I'd ask you to do if you're feeling like really cluttered, the way to start making space for things that can look good is what do you like about the day? Just find something small. What do you like about yourself? What did you do well today? Doesn't have to be perfect, some standard. Like, I just like that I got up today. I like that I brushed my teeth. I like that I smiled at myself today for just 1 second. I did it. Just keep that on repeat. Make that a loop. Make that experience fun.
I love that. It's the simplicity that, in part, is what makes that so wonderful. Coach Lee, thank you so much for being here today. Coach Lee, all of your information is going to be in the show notes, but out loud, clear so everyone can hear, how can they find you?
Out loud, clear, come to Patterns of Possibility. Go to patternsofpossibility.com and you're going to find me. Click Get Coaching. I do a 30-minute consultation, absolutely free. You will get a actionable step to walk away with when you work with me, or when you have a conversation. I will give you something that you can do in relation to your relationships. So patternsofpossibility.com. And if you search for Coach Lee Hopkins everywhere, that's the best way to find me if you can't remember you can't remember the name. But patternsofpossibility.com, Coach Lee Hopkins. That's me.
Again, Coach Lee, thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate you making the time for this. This was a fantastic conversation. Thank you for listening to Lighten Up the Art of Living Clutter-Free. If this episode resonated, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use just a little bit of lightness. If you're ready for deeper support, you can work with me one-on-one or join my Lighten Up Clutter-Free Mindset Group program. You can find all the details at my website, thoughtfullycoaching.com. Until next time, progress over perfection. Messy action is better than no action at all. So let's lighten up.